Hello, my fellow hirelings of House Telvanni. I'm Neloth, and allow me to introduce to you the ultimate Morag Tong Assassin build. A wandering assassin devoted to Morag Tong doctrine that uses an ebony crossbow for stealth kills and the Mephala-blessed ebony blade for more head-on encounters. He's a professional that offers his skills for coin and experience, trimming the rot and weeds of Skyrim while preparing himself for the day when the Morag Tong will finally reunite and return to the glory days of old. Before I begin, it should be fairly obvious that this is a modded build, which will be the norm for any future builds I make. Vanilla Skyrim does have great potential for builds and playthroughs, but many of the modded armors that have come out lately, like from Pullcharm Solus, are incredibly awe-inspiring and just dripping with lore and role-playing potential. And since I am a Morrowind-themed YouTube channel, sorta, I want to make many Morrowind-themed builds using these modded armors, especially for the Great Houses and even a few other builds that aren't Dunmeri-themed, but still have some sick-ass armor. Make sure to use the timestamps down below if you wish to navigate around this video. So with all that being said, let us learn more about this heavily themed Morrowind build and slice our way into this video with the backstory. His name is Taran Draal, son of Taros Draal, and was born into the Morag Tong. He never knew his mother, as she died giving birth to him, but he knew that she was zealously devoted to the Daedric prince Mephala, and also that his father loved her dearly. Her death weighed heavily on Taran's father, who used his grief as determination to train Taran to become the best of the Morag Tong. For his formative years, Taran mostly lived in the city of Mournhold, residing in the basement of a corner club that hid the headquarters of the Morag Tong. Here he would read every text on Mephala and train his skills to a razor-sharp point, under the strict and watchful eye of his father. Taran was too young to experience the horrors of the Red Year and the Argonian invasion, but he did witness the aftermath of those events, which were filled with anarchy, crime, and death. Knowing such horrors and pain at a young age hardened Taran, making him far more cold and distant, which he always believed was exactly why his father brought him to Mournhold in the first place. As he got older, Taran took on his first contract at 16. The Morag Tong was not the organization it once was, and so rather than eliminating corrupt members of the Great Houses, the guild mostly stuck to killing bandits, rioters, and Argonian interlopers. This was the case with Taran's first contract, where he easily assassinated a bandit chief who made the mistake of killing the daughter of a high bone priest of the new temple. Taran took great honor and even pleasure in the kill, as did his father and friends within the Morag Tong, but he couldn't help but feel unsatisfied. After all, the name Morag Tong in the Dunmeri language means Forresters Guild, and as his father said, "This is the job of we, the Forresters. We shape the trees, pruning the problematic branches and tending the roots, so the forest as a whole may prosper." After carrying out many more assassinations, Taran was promoted to the rank of brother, and was finally given a contract truly worthy of the Forresters Guild. A member of the now dishonored House Hlaalu named Riven Dareth had been making moves from the shadows, rising through the ranks of House Sadris too quickly, and also stealing deeds to certain Sadris-owned mines, all in an order to dismantle them and bring House Hlaalu back into prominence. This thrilled Taran, who truly felt that this contract was of actual significance, and in need of a gardener, to carefully pluck a weed from the ground without the rest of the forest noticing. After saying his farewells to his father and friends, he made his way, alone, to the town of Kraganmore, where his target had been carrying out his plans. Taran went into the poorer section of the town and conversed with a few beggars for information on Riven's whereabouts, in exchange for a paltry sum of gold. He discovered that Riven had completely bought out a local corner club and used it as a base of operations and hired a few mercenaries to protect him. Taran knew this meant he simply couldn't walk in and slash his throat without having to deal with unforeseen consequences. A challenge he welcomed with open arms. After some scouting, Taran discovered that the corner club was connected to an abandoned warehouse that had been ransacked by Argonians long ago. He took full advantage of this opportunity by sneaking into the warehouse and climbing up to the roof, which was connected to the corner club. Taran picked the lock on the window to the top floor of the corner club and snuck his way into Riven's room, where he was sleeping soundly in his bed. Taran scoured his room looking at notes and letters that were blatantly incriminating him of his crimes, and when his curiosity vanished, Taran grabbed the heaviest book he could find and threw it at Riven, who woke up immediately from his deep sleep. He gasped in surprise, but before he could say another word, Taran lifted his crossbow and said, "The Morag Tong send their regards," and proceeded to put a bolt right between his eyes. Taran snuck out and presented his writ of execution to the nearest guard and decided to celebrate by going to the nearest temple and praying to Mephala. He would have gone for a drink, but the corner club was obviously closed for maintenance. Taran prayed for hours, thinking back on his father and his teachings, and even to his mother, whom he knew was far more devoted to Mephala than he could ever be. As he left the temple, he was stopped by a courier who gave him a letter. As he opened it, he saw that it was a coded message that only the Morag Tong could decipher. And when he translated it, he could tell from the handwriting that it was from his father, telling him that the Morag Tong sanctuary in Mournhold had been compromised, and every agent was to go into hiding. His father told him specifically that his training had finally been complete, and that he should venture out into the world, even beyond Morrowind, to test himself and gain new experiences until the day that the Morag Tong would truly emerge. And so Taran did as he was instructed without question, like he was taught, and eventually found work as a guard for a caravan heading into Cyrodiil. When he made his way into Cyrodiil, he then became a bounty hunter, killing bandits and other bothersome individuals, sometimes even killing people whom the law would see as innocent. However, as a bounty hunter, Taran began to lose himself, as he turned to drinking quite frequently, and when he wasn't spending his gold on the finest sujama and wine, he was spending it on evenings with the Dibellan belly dancers of the Nibin Bay. This dulled Taran's senses and his skills, as well as his equipment, which was no longer of the quality that was expected of a Morag Tong assassin. One day, he was given a bounty by a nobleman in Cheydinhal that called for the murder of a headsman living in Skyrim, specifically in the town of Helgen. The gold was far too good to pass up, and he accepted the contract. He partook in debauchery and other hedonistic pleasures before making his way into Skyrim through the Pale Pass. However, Taran didn't bother being careful, and he stumbled upon a skirmish between the Empire and a group of rebels. As he tried to get away, he ran right into a legate who decided that he was guilty of some unknowable crime and took him captive. He was thrown onto a cart with those rebels and were being taken into Helgen, and you know the rest. Now that is the backstory of the Morag Tong Assassin, and as you can tell, he is a shadow of his former self, lost without the guidance of his father, and felt nothing but shame for his fall from grace. But upon almost being executed by the same headsman he was originally sent to kill, and witnessing a dragon burn Helgen to the ground, he will have a second awakening. First, his fight-or-flight instincts will kick in and he will attempt to get out of Helgen alive, but then he will start to see Skyrim as his new training grounds. A world for him to regain his skills and gain the experience his father wanted him to acquire. The Tong Assassin will want to escape Helgen with the Stormcloaks, as not only does Morrowind view the Empire with disdain, but the Morag Tong has never been friendly with them throughout history. He will want to first rack up a kill count with the various bandit camps surrounding both Riverwood and Whiterun to gain experience and remember the ways of the Morag Tong. Then afterwards, proceed with the main quest until you discover that you are Dragonborn. The Morag Tong will at first be confused at this power he was given, but he will then believe that Mephala herself must have plucked the strings of the Imperial ancestor spirits and manipulated them into giving him the gift of Dragonborn. He will then dedicate himself even further to honing his gifts as both Assassin and Dragon Slayer. For factions, you will definitely want to join the Thieves Guild, as your cutthroat assassin abilities will be perfect for a more mafia-styled Thieves Guild, and the Tong Assassin will actually appreciate them far more than the Thieves Guild that existed in Morrowind. You will also want to join the College of Winterhold for access to scholars and their library, as such resources would be invaluable to an assassin that wishes to understand his enemies and his environment completely. It is also great to perfect your abilities in illusion magic, which the Morag Tong will be using quite a bit, to spin a web of mistrust and betrayal against his enemies. Now, the Dark Brotherhood is a very interesting subject for this Morag Tong build. Both factions have historically always hated each other for being competing assassins, as well as the belief that the Dark Brotherhood was originally a splinter group of the Morag Tong that went their own way. You might think that eliminating them would be the preferred choice, however, I believe that joining them would be far more optimal, not just for gameplay purposes as you're an assassin, but also for lore reasons as well. If you progress far enough into the Thieves Guild, you will meet a Dunmer named Ravin Imyane, who is also a Morag Tong assassin, waiting for the day the organization reemerges. When you ask if he should have joined the Dark Brotherhood instead, he will say that if he did and was discovered to be a Morag Tong agent, he would be slaughtered. But he doesn't say anything about how joining them would mean betraying the Morag Tong. I feel that not only would joining the Dark Brotherhood allow the Morag Tong assassin to hone his skills and gain the experience his father wanted him to get, but he would also be practicing his skills of infiltration and subterfuge, gaining the trust of the Dark Brotherhood only to kill them all when the Morag Tong finally rises. And there are theories suggesting that the Night Mother is an aspect of Mephala, who is spinning yet another web of lies and deceit, which the Morag Tong assassin will come to fully believe. Just be sure not to wear their robes, as a Morag Tong agent would never wear those gimp suits, and also never praise Sithis in dialogue either. As for the companions, I would try to avoid them as they are quite antithetical to a pure assassin build. The companions, more specifically Kodlak, believe in dealing with problems head-on, which the Morag Tong assassin believes is foolish. Additionally, as a worshipper of Mephala, you won't want to become a Hound of Hircine with the blood of a werewolf. I would also completely ignore the Civil War questline as well. You wouldn't want to join the Imperials as they abandoned Morrowind at the first sign of trouble, contributing to the many catastrophes that happened there, like the Oblivion Crisis and the Argonian invasion. Besides, the Morag Tong has never had a positive relationship with the Empire, and even assassinated quite a few of their ranks in the past, including a few emperors. But you wouldn't want to side with the Stormcloaks either, as you couldn't give less of a shit about their god Talos or their independence. Who knows, if they are given total freedom, the barbarians might invade Morrowind like they did back in the day. The Morag Tong assassin will also be disgusted with how Ulfric treats his kin as second-class citizens, shoving them into some slums called the Grey Quarter, which is just an extra insult on top. For the Dawnguard DLC, you will want to side with the Dawnguard, as the Volkihar clan are worshippers of Molag Bal, one of the Daedric princes from the House of Troubles that are vilified by the Dunmer people. Besides, since the Morag Tong are trying to regrow their stature, becoming the vile spawn of Molag Bal would not be beneficial to the reputation of the guild. And we will also want access to the crossbows provided by Serene Gerard, so it just makes sense. Speaking of Daedric princes, you will naturally want to aid and follow Mephala's questline to get the Ebony Blade and truly become her champion. And you will also want to aid Azura and Boethia as well, since they together make up the Reclamations, the 3 good Daedra that the Dunmeri people follow, including the Morag Tong, although they do hold Mephala in higher regard. The Daedric princes that are associated with the House of Troubles, that being Molag Bal, Mehrunes Dagon, Malakath, and Sheogorath, will want to be avoided or double-crossed. And last but not least, you will want to complete the Dragonborn DLC as well, especially since it is a land of the Dunmer and is a far more familiar place to the Morag Tong Assassin. As for the Morag Tong Assassins you are forced to kill when aiding the Retirans of Raven Rock, the Morag Tong Assassin we play as will believe the contract they are trying to carry out is completely unjust and goes against the organization. This means that the Morag Tong members we slay will be traitors in his eyes and completely deserving of death. The Tong Assassin will want to assist the Redoran and Telvanni as much as he can, as aiding them can only help the reputation of the Morag Tong, helping them build the respect they need to truly return to glory. The last thing to keep in mind is that the Morag Tong are the Forresters Guild, that weed out the roots and rot in order to keep the rest of the forest clean and pure, as I explained in the backstory. So, when approaching enemies and other individuals, you will want to see killing people as weeding out the rot, from killing bandits and dragons to even murdering people in cities that do nothing but hurt those around them. Some good examples would be Mogrul in Raven Rock, Ondolamar in Markarth, the Silverblood family in general, and yes, even Nazim as well. The Morag Tong operate within Morrowind only through legal writs of execution, but we are not in Morrowind, so the rules do not apply. It is your playground to become the ultimate assassin. Moving on to the race, stats, and other things, it should be noted that we are using certain mods to make this build more unique and interesting, but not going too far off the deep end. These would be the Vokri minimalistic perks, the Morningstar races, and the Evenstar Standing Stones mods, all created by Ination, which are all subtle improvements to the game that are still very close to the base game. For the race, we are obviously going to go with the Dark Elf. The Morag Tong does obviously allow any race to join, but we will want to go with a Dunmer more for the aesthetics and role-playing, as well for the fact that the helmet we use is simply made for the Dunmer. We will also get a nice 50% resistance to fire damage, which will be useful against dragons, and the Spite perk, which we will get with the Morningstar mod, which allows us to do more damage by up to 30% when we are below half health, which will be incredibly useful if we are discovered and backed into a corner. As for the Standing Stones, we will opt to go with the Shadow Stone, which with the Evenstar mod, allows us to sneak 40% faster and deal 15% extra damage with sneak attacks, which is just made for an assassin character. Now for our Magicka, health, and stamina, at around level 40, we will want our stats to look something like this. Invest about 15 levels in Magicka, which is all we really need to cast illusion spells. 15 levels should be invested in health to make sure we have enough for the moments we are in actual combat, and 10 levels in stamina, which will be very nice for when we zoom in with our crossbow, but also nice for power attacks with the ebony blade as well. If you go beyond level 40, I would say continue to invest evenly into both stamina and Magicka, as we won't really need any more health since enemies really won't be hitting us. And when they are, we will be getting back more health than we lose with the Ebony Blade. As for worship, we will be using the Winter Sun mod, also by Ination, as it will allow us to further roleplay with our characters and make the game far more interesting. Naturally, we will want to become a follower of Mephala, who is a starting deity for all Dark Elves. Her follower perk, Secret Murder, will give us increased sneak damage from behind, which will be very useful and works with ranged weapons as well as melee, which will be good since the majority of our sneak attacks in the game will be done at range. The Shrine Blessing we get will allow us to mix potions 15% more effectively, which will be very useful as we will use a great deal of paralysis and damage health poisons. And the Devotee perk we get at 100% favor will allow us in prayer to seize control of the nearest enemy within 75 feet to fight for us, which isn't as useful considering our investment in illusion, but it's still fun to play around with. In order to gain favor with Mafala, poison your weapons, strike unseen with sneak attacks, intimidate the weak, dark elves are most deserving of my favor. And now for the skills and perks. For skills, we will want to focus on Archery, Two-Handed, Illusion, Light Armor, Sneak, Alchemy, and Smithing. I felt that Enchanting wasn't necessary for this build, since we are already relying heavily on Alchemy, but you can go down that path easily as well. You can also swap Two-Handed for One-Handed if you wish to use daggers more, but for the aesthetics of this Mafala worshipping build, I really wanted to go into Two-Handed for the Ebony Blade. Now, on screen are all of the perks I've chosen for this build, most of which will be self-explanatory, but I'll explain some of the more important ones. For Two-Handed, we have Two-Handed Mastery, Brutal Fighter, Ferocious Strength, which is important as it makes power attacks deal more damage, and since we can't increase the damage of the Ebony Blade through smithing, we will need all the damage we can get. Also, Decapitation is cool as fuck. Overbearing Assault, and lastly, Coup de Grace, which will be nice as it will allow us to inflict 10 times critical damage to targets that are below 30% health, executing them, which is perfect for this build. In Archery, we have Archery Mastery, Eagle Eye, and Steady Hand 1 of 2, which will be helpful when sniping, but I never felt that the final rank of Steady Hand was worth it, but feel free to get the second one if you wish. Far Shot 2 of 2 for sniping targets, Impaling Shot to make any runaways bleed for 15 seconds, Power Shot, Ranger, and Quick Shot, which will be nice as we get to reload our crossbow 30% faster, and since it will be our main weapon we use, we want a higher DPS. For Illusion, we will want Illusion Mastery, Illusion Dual Casting to make our spells affect higher level enemies, Quiet Casting, Animage 3 of 3 for the same effect, and Mastery of the Mind 1 to allow us to use illusion spells on undead, Daedra, and automatons. In Light Armor, we will want to get Light Armor Mastery, Agility for extra stamina regeneration, Windrunner to move faster, and War Dancer so we can have increased damage as long as we don't get hit. For Sneak, we will want to get Sneak Mastery, Silent Roll, but only for aesthetics and can easily be removed, Sneak Attack, Deadly Aim for increased range damage, Silent Movement 1 of 2. I didn't feel the second rank was necessary as the armor we use will only have a weight of 9, which is already super light, but get the second one if you wish. And lastly, Blind Spot to be harder to detect by enemies within 30 feet of us, which helps prevent us from getting detected. In Alchemy, we will want to get Alchemy Mastery, Poisoner, Concentrated Poison, and Alkahest. All of these perks will help us create useful poisons like Paralysis Poisons, which we will use a great deal of. You will also want to make potions to enhance our damage with our weapons, however, I didn't think it was worth the perk investment beyond Alchemy Mastery. Lastly, for smithing, we will want to get Steel Smithing, Elven Smithing, Dwarven Smithing, Orcish Smithing, and Ebony Smithing. Elven Smithing will allow us to create the beautiful Morag Tong Seeker armor and improve it, and Ebony Smithing will help us improve the ebony crossbow we use. Now for the weapons and armor. The armor we use is the Morag Tong Seeker armor created by Pool Charm Solus in the Armors of the Velothi Part 2 mod. I am absolutely in love with the design and how it pays direct homage to the concept art from Morrowind, showcasing a Morag Tong Assassin. The wrappings are nice, the pockets look like they are packing many poisons that we will use to carry out assassinations, and the mask. The mask! It looks perfect for an assassin. Easily able to conceal the identity of dear Taran Drawl over here, and keep ash out of his face, and the spider eye design on his right eye is just perfect for a worshipper of Mafala. For the weapons, we will be using an ebony crossbow which you can get through a little quest, but be sure to go to Ironback Hideout northwest of Solitude and read Cragrash's letter to begin it. After completing the quest, you can also craft the Enhanced Ebony Crossbow, which will ignore 50% of armor. You can get this weapon with the Elite Crossbows Creation Club mod added in the Anniversary Edition. However, if you don't want or have the Anniversary Edition, you can easily just use a Dwarven Enhanced Crossbow obtained by siding with the Dawn Guard. You could also go for an Ebony Bow as well. We will also be using the Ebony Blade, which can be obtained by reaching level 20 and talking to the Innkeeper in Whiterun. When you obtain the Ebony Blade, you will need to kill 10 friends in order to fully achieve its power, which should be done for this build as Terran is a devout worshipper of Mephala. The Morag Tong Assassin doesn't have much empathy due to the horrors and lives he had taken in his past, so just kill any friends who have outlived their usefulness. If you are still uncertain on who to kill, be sure to watch my video on potential victims to kill to upgrade Mephala's blade. For spells, we will mostly be using any frenzy spells that cause victims to attack anyone around them in order to sow division, cause chaos, create distractions, and please Mephala. Invisibility spells will also be useful to have if you are ever in a pinch and don't have any invisibility potions on hand. The Morag Tong Assassin won't really be using shouts since they don't really complement our assassin and are much too loud because you are, well, shouting. But because we have quiet casting, shouts like Drain Vitality and Marked for Death could easily be used and you will not be detected. Now, when in combat, the goal is to keep in stealth when faced with overwhelming numbers by sniping them and using frenzy spells to cull the weak, and occasionally leaping out from the shadows to take on stragglers and sap their life force with the Ebony Blade. Paralysis poisons will be extremely useful for enemies that simply won't go down in one hit, or are ice mages that are going to eviscerate you with one ice spike. The perks we use make long range more suitable, however we will end up doing so much damage that it won't really matter. The idea is to always approach encounters with a plan or strategy in mind, and when all else fails, retreat using invisibility to work out a newer approach. And that's all I wrote! The ultimate Morag Tong Assassin, perfect for your role-playing needs. I had a lot of fun making this build, and if this video does well, I would love to make many, many more. Skyrim is really goddamn old, but with the help of mods, we can really create newer and more fleshed out experiences to truly keep this game alive. You know who keeps me alive? My beloved channel members who are Mirak, Sovdark, Conarunda, Nork, Will Ernst, The Proud Prince, Deadpool Maoista, Skooma Addict, JJ Ensid, Grud, Ranger McKay, Milani Stilla, and Batman Man. And if you would like to see my videos earlier by either 24 hours or even 3 days, then consider becoming a member. All members get early access, and Oathman and Mouths will get shoutouts at the beginning or end of almost every video. So with all that being said, make sure to like the like button, like the subscribe button, and like the bell notification down below to be updated on future videos. And I will see you whenever the fuck I decide to upload again. House Telvanni be with you.
Please, O hero of Skyrim, I shall be ever so grateful.